Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, Miguel DC. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. I'm sure many of you remember Jeff Dawn and that 1 million mile battery that they were talking about and predicting back around 2019. Well, fast forward a few years and Jeff Dawn and his team just published some new research. We cannot forget Jeff Dawn is still a central battery advisor to Tesla, a primary funder of the Dalhousie Lab. A few years back, we learned the Tesla and Jeff Dawn Dalhousie Alliance, one of the most watched research contracts in the clean tech world, announced a new deal for a second 5-year term, taking the relationship until at least 2026. And crucially, the renewal not only fortifies Dalhousie's prominence in the field of international battery research, it's also tacit confirmation that Tesla is benefiting from the work coming out of Dawn's lab, even if they remain tight-lipped about what exactly it is that's being developed. As part of this agreement, Tesla will fund Dawn's lab and claim exclusive right to the developments and inventions that come out of it. So with that context, back in 2019, Dawn and his team put out this research paper in the Journal of Electrochemical Society, a wide range of testing results on an excellent lithium-ion cell chemistry to be used as benchmarks for new battery tech. In the abstract, they said, "We conclude that cells of this type should be able to power an EV for over 1.6 million kilometers or 1 million miles and last at least 2 decades in grid energy storage." Well, fast forward to today and the new research that Dawn and his team just put out, post-mortem analysis of NMC and graphite pouch cells with exceptional capacity retention after up to 8 years of cycling. Now we know that Tesla does not use pouch cells, but in this study they say to maximize the lifespan of a cell, a cylindrical or a prismatic cell format with reduced solvent evaporation should be preferred. So in the study, they were using pouch cells, but based on the findings, they actually think a cylindrical cell or a prismatic is actually the way to go. From the abstract, these NMC graphite pouch cells, which exhibit exceptional capacity retention after up to 8 years or 22,000 charge-discharge cycles. Then in the body of the research, they said it can be projected these two cells will reach their end of life, which they classify as 80% of their initial capacity, in about 2.5 more years. That time frame corresponds to about 10 years of total cycling time, or about 32,000 charge-discharge cycles. Based on that number, and estimating an EV can drive about 250 miles in one cycle, that would correspond to 7.5 million miles. Said another way, about 300 times the circumference of the Earth. So as it turns out, that 1 million mile battery projection from 2019 turned out to be quite conservative. Now, to understand what this new research actually means in practice, I think the best way to think about it is that some of the learnings and the findings from this study will in time trickle down into Tesla's actual production. And frankly, that's exactly what's been happening since Tesla started working with Jeff Dawn and his team nearly a decade ago. And the facts from the study, the results revealed that optimized single crystal NMC 532 and artificial graphite cells maintained 80% capacity retention after 8.2 years of continuous cycling, with no significant degradation observed in either the cathode crystal structure or the electrolyte. The data proves that with optimized materials and operating protocols, lithium-ion tech is already capable of exceeding the requirements of even the most demanding automotive and energy storage applications. And when compared to LFP and graphite cells, which have been all of the rage lately, now they're saying the NMC system demonstrates a superior balance of volumetric energy density and cycle life metrics. The authors said solvent evaporation in pouch cells remains a primary limiting factor for service life, so again, if these chemistries were implemented in a cylindrical or prismatic format, which offer better sealing, the operational lifespan could potentially be extended even further. The findings identify lithium inventory loss as the primary driver of capacity decay, while the degradation of the cathode, the electrolyte, and the anode has been successfully suppressed to negligible levels. The discovery challenges the conventional perception that high nickel cathodes are unsuitable for long life applications, proving that through the optimization of materials like single crystal NMC and operating protocols, meaning keeping the battery at lower temperatures and restricting the voltage windows, lithium-ion batteries can achieve a service life spanning decades. Said another way, that 7 million mile capacity, well, that's roughly 500 years of average driving. Now, what's the catch? Well, Don did give some interviews after publishing this paper over the past few days, and he said the batteries need to be treated gently. They should be kept more or less at temperatures below 80 degrees Fahrenheit using cooling mechanisms. The owner should charge them only to about 70% of capacity and fully charge only for long trips, and they should usually charge them slowly. In the study, they charged the batteries in about 3 hours. And after that, you're likely to have an effective forever battery. Don said this verbatim, like, holy crap, this is insane. It's telling you that these things are going to last. We're running these 12 cycles a day, man, 8 years, like, unreal. So the conventional wisdom the past few years has been that, well, LFP batteries just have longer cycle life. But now Jeff Don is saying those claims are false. NMC actually has a longer cycle life. Now, it should be noted Jeff Don is a co-inventor of the nickel manganese cobalt chemistry to begin with, but he said his 40-person team is still working to improve the performance of LFP since it's becoming so popular. Jeff Don said these findings show EV owners could connect their cars to the grid every day and lose hardly any battery life. So who knows if Tesla will take their advice, but I can assure you Jeff Don and his team are pushing Tesla to adopt more bi-directional charging across the fleet. And we don't talk about it much, but we cannot forget about the potential for these Tesla battery packs when they reach the end of their useful life in a Tesla vehicle to then be used on the grid. It should also be noted in the study, they filled up the batteries with a lot more electrolyte than is typically used. That's because the electrolyte, the fluid that keeps the lithium ion shuttling from one electrode to the other on charge and discharge, can dry up and leak over time. And again, those impacts can be lessened using cylindrical or prismatic. And to conclude the interview, Don said the bottom line is these things last so long. If you're not doing vehicle to grid and second use, you're just missing the boat. So again, EVs in the real world are still going to be optimized for fast charging and road trips and high energy density. And realistically, owners can't always only charge to 70% while keeping the temperature under 80 degrees Fahrenheit and all of these perfect lab conditions. But again, some of these learnings will undoubtedly start making it to Tesla's battery production, both 4680 in-house and from suppliers. And we've already seen Tesla do this. Years ago, they patented the new single crystal NCA electrode. And yes, that finding came from Jeff Don and his team. So the old way Tesla made cathodes was having these clumps, which were basically little crystals that were all facing different directions. But because they were all facing different directions when that was happening, it could result in cracking. So that process, a bunch of little crystals in different directions, is referred to as polycrystalline. Then the new single crystal method is exactly what it sounds like. One crystal where everything is lined up, so when that swelling and shrinking happens, that cracking is much less likely. As of now, as far as I can tell, there's no official confirmation that Tesla is using this single crystal method in any of its batteries in cars today, but there have been reports that LG, one of Tesla's suppliers, has actually been making batteries using that single crystal method. And of course, just because Tesla hasn't confirmed it publicly doesn't mean that they're not doing it. But by far, the main takeaway here is that the projections that Don and his team made back in 2019 have finally been confirmed years later after this actual testing. And as we pointed out, the results were significantly better than what Don and co were expecting. So right now, it's impossible to say exactly what changes Tesla will make to its battery production process in-house and in working with suppliers. But because of this partnership between Tesla and Jeff Don and his team, Tesla gets priority access. And not only that, but exclusive rights and access to any patents that Don and his team file on behalf of Tesla. So for battery packs in Tesla cars now, we can look at all of the degradation data, which is actually very strong, but so much of that is from Tesla vehicles produced in the 2010s. We just don't have long-term information about the battery packs that Tesla is making now. So we're likely going to have to wait another decade to see how long these battery packs made in 2026 actually last. But for now, the narrative may be changing. Do not sleep on the cycle life of nickel manganese cobalt cells. And anytime a friend or coworker brings up the longevity of these EV battery packs, you can tell them that the latest research from one of the most respected labs on planet Earth has been incredibly encouraging for where things are headed. And of course, we're not going to get lab results in the real world in Tesla vehicles anytime soon, but I'm very confident improvements will be made even if they're not made public, and the real application here might be for a second life use after it reaches end of life in a vehicle. And if you take care of your battery pack well, it might last a lot longer than you're expecting. So I'll have the full research report linked below, but very encouraging stuff coming out from Jeff Dawn and co. Today, NHTSA closed a probe into Actually Smart Summon, one that covered about 2.6 million Tesla vehicles. NHTSA opened the probe early 2025 after reports of several crashes. The agency concluded the feature was linked primarily to low-speed incidents resulting in minor property damage and said it had reports of about 100 crashes but no injuries or fatalities. Most reported incidents involved vehicles hitting obstacles like parked cars, garage doors, or gates, often early in a summon session when visibility or situational awareness was limited. No incidents were reported that involved a major crash, airbag deployment, or a vehicle being towed away. The agency said the low frequency and severity of the incidents did not warrant further action. Tesla has already addressed issues through a series of software updates aimed at improving obstacle detection, camera blockage identification, and vehicle response to dynamic objects like gates. The updates also sought to reduce errors caused by environmental factors like snow or condensation affecting cameras. So NHTSA's probe into Actually Smart Summon is now closed, and it was found not guilty. But sadly, many of us know this does not mean that Actually Smart Summon is working reliably in the real world. I've tried it a handful of times a month over the past few months, and more often than not, it simply does not work. Either I have to get so close to the car that at that point it's not even worth doing it, or the car will start to move, but then for whatever reason gets spooked and ultimately gets stuck. Now, I know the feature does work for some people in some places. I'm just saying for me, it has not been working. And yes, I'm certainly hopeful that we'll get updates on a 14.3.x branch in the future, but as predicted last week, Sunday came and went, and still no signs of 14.3 out in the wild. I just want to quickly tip the cap to Tesla's Supercharging team, not just for the foldable invention we covered last week, and it won't be a huge needle mover in the short term, but I really am such a fan of Tesla's Supercharger for Business program. As EnviroSpark shared on LinkedIn, we're officially on site in Boca Raton, Florida, as a diamond store by Raymond Lee is now white labeling Tesla Superchargers. And this program just gets more parties involved. We have this EnviroSpark company, one of the nation's biggest charging providers and charge point operators. As they shared late last year, they brought charger number 2,500 online on its own network, with another 1,000 network plugs contracted and coming online soon. And those 2,500 installations span multifamily communities, hospitality properties, retail centers, and public access points. And as Tesla Charging said over the weekend in St. Saturnin, that marked their 80,000th supercharger install. At this site in France with 48 stalls, it does have solar canopies, which you love to see. And Tesla also shared an update to its utilization and waiters chart. The utilization in the red continues to tick up, which continues to sit right around 8 sessions per stall per day on average. And the percentage of waiters in the white continues to drop, currently sitting less than about 0.5%. Max from Tesla said cold temperature performance is key. The combination of great battery preheating, heat on navigation, and AC ripple current, where the supercharger sends an AC ripple current through the battery for faster warm-up, make Teslas stand out in extreme cold. Norwegians know this. And he shared a chart showing supercharger data from the cold winter in New York City this year. Tesla's average charging power in kilowatts are these yellow glowing circles, whereas non-Tesla are the gray circles. All that to say, the speculation of the death of Tesla's supercharging network and team that went viral last year, it's been greatly exaggerated. This account Hardware 3 FSD shared some images and a video of a Robotaxi configuration Model Y seen in Colorado with Texas manufacturer plates. He said the interior lighting was the gold Robotaxi color and there was some kind of FSD testing UI on the screen, but he couldn't capture it. This was at the East 45th Ave Supercharger, which is in Aurora. Just know Colorado is not currently one of the states that Tesla is advertising it plans to expand to in the first half of this year. However, one that is on the list, Phoenix, Arizona. We just had Gregor Truck share some images where he found about 60 Model Ys this morning with rear sprayers for unsupervised. So the signs are there, but the fact of the matter is we now have less than 3 months for Tesla to expand to 7 new cities: Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and Las Vegas. And we have seen some signs in most of these cities, but all I have to say for now, it'll be a very interesting few months. Recently, we talked about how activist McCormick would be reassigning those 3 cases she was presiding over having to do with Elon and his companies. Well, we just found out the way she actually did this. She used a bag of Scrabble tiles to select new judges. The reporting said while the analog method was unusual for the powerful business court, it did leave little doubt that the ultimate selection of vice chancellors, Nathan Cook and Bonnie David, would be insulated from future claims of tampering or bias. They said she pulled out a cloth bag containing 6 Scrabble tiles with the letters C, F, L, Z, W, and D. The letters represented the first initials of the last names of the Delaware Court of Chancery's 6 other judges. But as the selection was set to begin, McCormick abruptly looked to Rudolph Koch, an attorney for Elon and Tesla, and McCormick said, "Mr. Koch, do you view this as funny?" To which he said, "No." To be a fly on the wall in that room. However, the actual news here, after McCormick posted her letter on the court docket, Tesla shareholder David Wagner dismissed his case. He's the one that sued in 2022, alleging Tesla's board failed to enforce a 2018 agreement with the SEC that required Elon to get Tesla approval for social media posts. Which means yes, ultimately there were only 2 cases after one had been voluntarily dismissed. And that happened immediately after Judge McCormick said she was going to remove herself from the case. So listen, could it be unrelated and nothing nefarious is going on, and for some other reason this shareholder decided that, hey, maybe I don't have a good case anymore? A reason that didn't have to do with Judge McCormick? Sure, it's possible. But it's also a fact. The timeline was Judge McCormick says she's going to be off of this case, and immediately after that, Wagner decides to dismiss his case. You tell me. About Friday, I had every intention of uploading a video, but that morning I had a window with nice weather, so I made a judgment call and decided to start changing the winter tires out from my wife's Model Y. The problem was I had to learn how to use a new hydraulic jack and the new jack stand that I got to make the process safer, and there were no instructions, so it took a lot longer than I thought. But thankfully, I was able to figure it out. I still have all of my limbs intact, and my wife has been driving the car and the wheels have not fallen off. All that to say, I know that by now, the news about Tesla's Q1 P&D report is very stale. However, I just want to go over a few very quick points. The first of which being the gap between production and deliveries was abnormally large, which means most of those vehicles are likely simply in transit to their end customer. There were plenty of reports toward the end of Q1 signaling that Tesla's order inflow would be increased, but it's going to take time for those vehicles to make it to the end customer and thus count as deliveries. And to visualize what I'm saying, I love this chart from CERN. It shows Tesla's global vehicle inventory, or days of supply, but it adjusts for the transport days in blue. Meaning when you account for the time that these vehicles are in transit, let's call it 18 days on average, that will actually leave you with Tesla's true inventory days in green. And believe it or not, from that metric alone, Tesla has had significantly higher inventory in the past. Now, it's true that just looking at the past few years, this inventory level is one of the higher ones for Tesla, but guys, let's just wait until Q2 to see how many of those vehicles get delivered. But for me, at this point, I think it's way too early to start saying or even thinking that Tesla has an actual inventory problem. But listen, even if you don't adjust for those transport days, Tesla still has somewhere under about 30 days of supply. Meanwhile, if you look at the broader auto sector in the United States from this Cox report in March, the average industry-wide is 90 82 days of supply. And they said inventory volume increased 4.1% month over month, a typical seasonal pattern as dealers build ahead of spring demand. And further, we cannot forget Tesla doesn't have dealers, but they have showrooms and locations where they want to have inventory on hand. And we know they're expanding those locations in places like Japan. Remember, in Japan alone, Tesla has plans to double the number of physical locations in the country. And at those locations, they'll need more inventory. So the truth is, we could be looking at somewhere between 20 and 30,000 deliveries that just didn't make the cut in Q1, but they're going to start with that head start in Q2. But let's not forget what Elon said on a quarterly call in the middle of last year. Does that mean we could have a few rough quarters? Yeah, we probably could have a few rough quarters. I'm not saying we will, but we could. Q4, Q1, maybe Q2. So even if you are somebody that interprets these results as all bad, Elon did warn us that, hey, that was a possible outcome. Then on the energy storage figure, coming in at 8.8 gigawatt hours, which was well below the expectations in the neighborhood of 14 to 15. Let's not forget what Tesla's CFO, Vaibhav Taneja, has said numerous times. Talking about the Megapack, he said, I do want to caution that Megapack deployments are a bit lumpy. Depending upon where we are trying to deploy that product in different markets, you would see periods where there would be downward pressure on deployment because of us trying to get the product to that exact place where the product is in transit. Then on a separate call talking about Megapacks, he said, note that there is a bit of lumpiness in our storage deployments due to a variety of factors that are outside of our control, so deployments may fluctuate quarter over quarter. So I'm seeing longtime Tesla fans say things like, these Q1 energy deployment numbers are terrible, the demand is gone. And I'm just like, have we completely forgotten how this business actually works? I mean, we have a Morgan Stanley analyst saying this, while this missed consensus expectations by 40% talking about energy storage, that market, particularly large grid-scale storage, is inherently lumpy given ever-changing project timelines due to permits, labor, interconnect approval, etc. Even he knows it's far too early to call this quarter's result a trend. And in Tesla's 10K filing, Tesla said it expects to recognize $4.96 billion in 2026 in deferred revenue from energy storage projects already underway. That's more than double what the company recognized in deferred revenue from storage projects in 2025. And very similar to the auto side, Tesla manufactures these Megapacks and then has to ship them around the world, which can take weeks. And Tesla says on its slide deck, our energy product deployment volume includes both customer units when installed and equipment sales at time of delivery, meaning some Megapack projects can actually be counted as deployed once they're delivered, but others can't be counted until they're actually installed. And of course, there are all kinds of factors outside of Tesla's control that determine when these units can actually be installed. I think it'd be better if Tesla just reported the Megapack production volume because they're not going to produce units if they don't already have a home in mind. So if we're going to play this quarterly number game, that would be a much better metric to look at. So it's true, this 8.8 gigawatt hour number was indeed lower than Q1 of last year, but really a much better metric to watch here from another chart from CERN shows the trailing 12-month number in terms of storage deployed, which does show a slight pullback, but it's nothing that hasn't happened before. And again, we just have to wait and see what happens in Q2. And let's not forget, Tesla's 358,000 full EV deliveries in Q1 is now first in the world, as BYD only delivered about 310.4 thousand full BEVs in Q1. And just take a look around at the rest of the auto industry. Full BEV sales are not in a strong place. So given the macro environment and what the competition is doing, Tesla is doing just fine, even in these down quarters that Elon has warned us about. So for now, we really haven't heard anything about a slowdown in Tesla Megapack demand. And now a new country, Poland, is getting in on the action with energy storage. They're deploying its second utility scale project using 5 Tesla Megapacks. Known as Project Vistula, it's the first one connected directly to the distribution network operator's grid. This is the first deployment of Tesla Megapacks on the Polish market, and hopefully the first of many, because this project was developed as a pilot to demonstrate how large-scale battery storage systems can be integrated into the Polish electricity system and market structures. And who knows, maybe Tesla exported more vehicles from Giga Shanghai than expected in Q1 that once again just have not yet been delivered, because there are places like South Korea where Tesla is doing great numbers so far this year. In Q1 in South Korea, Tesla delivered just under 21,000 vehicles, which is more than Q1 and Q2 combined from last year. For some comedic relief today, JP Morgan is now warning that Tesla stock could drop 60% from here. In case you're not familiar, Ryan Brinkman from JP Morgan has been sounding the alarm on Tesla stock now for a decade plus. He's a one-star analyst on TipRanks, actually one of the worst rated analysts out of 12,100. If you recall, a few weeks back when Tesla was up around 380, I said we're still in a structural uptrend, but that doesn't mean Tesla can't go back down to 350 or even below, maybe down to 300. And the first leg of that has actually happened, but Brinkman has a price target of $145. But truly, it's not worth wasting your time talking about anything Ryan Brinkman says, because he's been laughably wrong for a decade plus. I truly do not know how he still has a job. Tesla is now hiring for a technical program manager for the Optimus hand. This person will lead the end-to-end development of the Optimus hand hardware subsystem. It'll focus on driving the creation of a high-dexterity, mass-manufacturable hand for the Optimus humanoid robot, ensuring seamless integration across hardware engineering, firmware, controls, and AI manipulation teams. I'm sure some people will take a bearish read where it says the role will focus on driving the creation of this high-dexterity, mass-manufacturable hand, and then think, well, shouldn't they already have that close to being done? First of all, this entire project will never be done. Tesla will continue to iterate and refine as they always do. But you could just as easily take this as Tesla has something that they're ready to actually set the groundwork for mass manufacturing for. Meaning this role could take the prototype that they have and like and actually get that ready for mass manufacturing. Anant Nivarti said that he was thrilled to be rejoining Tesla AI. He'll be starting as the silicon engineering lead. Anant was actually a core member of Tesla's original Dojo program, and it sounds like he'll be coming back to make the transition to Dojo 3 and AI 6. And he's actually only been away from Tesla for a few months, so it'll be great to have him back. As Sawyer said, Tesla raised the price on all remaining inventory, new and demo Model S and X vehicles by $15,000. But all of these vehicles do include the Lux package. You may have heard reports that SpaceX was now looking for a $2 trillion valuation at IPO, but Elon said, don't believe everything you read. Bloomberg publishes BS. Jeff Roberts shared this video of FSD and how it avoided a sideswipe that a human driver, if not paying attention, may not have seen that may have resulted in an accident. So just our periodic reminder of all of the times FSD is going to avoid accidents that will never be recorded. As Elon said, Tesla self-driving saves a lot of lives. The stats are unequivocal. That doesn't mean it's perfect, of course. Even when we improve safety 10x, saving 90% of the million lives lost in auto accidents every year, Tesla will still get sued for the 10% who did die. The 90% who are still alive mostly won't even know that Tesla saved them. Nonetheless, it's the right thing to do. Tesla stock closed the day at $352.82, down 2.15%, while the NDX was up 0.61%. The volume was 24% above the average. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.